Part 64. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 631. Vision determines the mind determines the pattern, and the pattern determines whether the enterprise can grow bigger and go long term. In the past, Su Ming was used to thinking about problems from the perspective of spending less money and doing more things. In order to acquire the zoo with the least money, he deliberately suppressed the development of the zoo before the acquisition, especially the 3 peach gardens in the back mountain. After deciding to acquire, there was almost no large-scale investment. The acquisition cannot be realized for a while, but it will cause many resources in the 3 peach gardens to be vacant. In fact, think about it, this approach is not wise. To put it bluntly, it is just playing a little trick. Even with this little trick, it may not succeed. This is all self-talk, thinking that it can be cheap. After all, until now, there has been no substantial contact with the government department. If an enterprise wants to grow bigger and stronger and go long-term, it cannot rely on just a little trick, but on solid hard power. Even if this little trick succeeds, allowing oneself to acquire the zoo cheaply and save tens of millions or even hundreds of millions, what will be the result? The local government of Yangchuan City could not fail to see this little trick. This time, they tolerated me, but it would give the government 2 most direct impressions. First, the strength of this enterprise is not strong. Second, the person in charge of the enterprise is too calculating. This is not a good impression. Leaving these 2 impressions will affect the rating of Daowin Group in the eyes of the local government. In the future, if there are cooperation opportunities and projects, people will inevitably consider it more. It is possible to take advantage once, but no one can take advantage for a lifetime. Whether it is a person or a company, you can't just think about this time. You have to have long-term considerations and look to the future. Internally, employees of various companies of Daowin Group will praise the boss for being capable and making money, but in a subtle way, it will leave an impression on employees that as long as they can make a profit, they would rather damage the interests of the company and would rather not do anything. This is a big problem. Therefore, even if it loses tens of millions in the end, the bad influence it brings is difficult to estimate in terms of money. Of course, Su Ming's original thought was reasonable. At that time, there was no big income from filming, and he had very little money on hand. For him, tens of millions was almost all the working capital, which was definitely not a figure that could be underestimated. People will change. As time, environment, and circumstances change, people are also constantly changing. Some people are getting worse and worse, while others are getting better and better. With a broad vision, you can naturally think about problems from a higher perspective. Hong Fei felt that Ding Jing was also changing, and the change was very fast. Sometimes the more they were together, the more Ding Jing's phone kept ringing, and she often looked absent-minded from beginning to end. Hong Fei knew very well that it was not that Ding Jing had changed her mind, but that the gap between her and her was getting bigger and bigger. When the 2 were together, many things could no longer be discussed. Ding Jing no longer cared about what she was interested in, and she could not help Ding Jing with most of the things she cared about, and she didn't even understand them at all. She lay on the railing of Tingfeng Pavilion and saw the eaves protruding more than half a meter. She suddenly laughed. She thought that she would not be discovered if she sat there thinking about her own things at night, but she didn't know that Su Ming had noticed it a long time ago. No wonder it is said that there are many women around this guy. There are not many people who can do such a big business and be so careful. Even her thoughts that she has never told anyone, and even Ding Jing doesn't know, were seen by him at a glance. Otherwise, just try it as he said. Maybe after she walks out of the zoo and into society, many problems will be solved after her horizons are broadened. Su Ming himself was actually a little lonely these 2 days. He met his first love and passed by. His old dormitory classmates were either sick or like Ho Long Tao, Bearing the pressure of life, Hong Fei was worried, and the inspection team was full of confidence and went to a foreign land. Even the pandas Yingying and Lele left. Since the live broadcast was shut down, the revenue brought by the panda rental to the Hong Kong Ocean Park has been greatly reduced. In addition, the two pandas have not been in the ocean park for a long time. The citizens of Hong Kong have more or less some opinions. It was agreed that the mainland gave it to us, why did it take it back? What does this mean? Are the people of Hong Kong easy to bully? So before the contract period is completely over, the other party hopes that the zoo can return the two pandas. If Su Ming insists on doing things according to the contract, he can delay for a while, but there is no need. The two pandas will be returned to the ocean park sooner or later. It doesn't make any difference if it's a month earlier or a month later. Fortunately, the two young pandas, now it's hard to tell who is older and who is younger, are growing up very healthily. In the future, as long as they do a little bit of work, Yangchuan City Zoo will accidentally discover two wild giant pandas that need rescue. It's strange that they are not healthy. They have been in contact with mental power since the womb. Mental power has a great promoting effect on any animal. It is simply a strengthening potion without any side effects. Su Ming doubts whether these two guys will become the king of pandas in the future. Gray Fang, who has also been in contact with spiritual power since his mother's womb, has this tendency. In fact, Gray Fang is only a 1-year-old wolf cub, but his size and strength have surpassed that of an adult wolf. He even has some human wisdom and can even understand the simple meanings that ordinary people want to express. In the past, the Yangtze River dolphin was ownerless. It was Su Ming who found it and rescued it. Of course, he had to compete with the Academy of Agricultural Sciences for it. However, Yingying and Lele are different. Not only is the ownership clear, but they also carry certain political influence. The other party sent someone to Yangchuan City to pick up the two pandas. On the day of departure, Su Ming deliberately did not show up, not only to avoid his own sadness, but also to prevent the two pandas from taking the opportunity to cause trouble. Giant pandas are very smart and will not miss any opportunity. The two little guys dare not be taken out for the time being, and the panda house is empty. The keeper Xiao Li wiped the window edge of the air-conditioned room with his fingers, and there was a thin layer of dust on it. I am reluctant to part with them. Xiao Li shook his head and laughed at himself. He has been a keeper for several years and has raised many animals. He is also responsible for the black bear family. But pandas are particularly affectionate and will not hurt humans. Sometimes when Xiao Li comes to feed them, the pandas will even hug his legs to prevent him from leaving, or sneakily play hide and seek with him, stupidly cover their eyes, and expose their outside the rocks, thinking that others can't see them. After a long time, it is false to say that there is no emotion. The tourists also sighed. It is said that on the day the pandas left, many tourists came to the panda house to say goodbye. According to the time, these two guys should have arrived at the Hong Kong Ocean Park. Su Ming smiled and said, "I'll call and ask. After the holiday, our zoo will go to Hong Kong for a tour, and we'll go see them." Called the Hong Kong Ocean Park to inquire about the two pandas. It would have been fine if I hadn't called, but once I called, I found out that something serious had happened. The two pandas had escaped. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 632. The plane landed in Xiangjiang, and the animal cabin containing the pandas was opened, and it was empty. The two cages containing giant pandas were wide open, and there was no trace of the pandas. Not only the pandas disappeared, but other animals also disappeared. This cabin is specially used to store animals. In addition to the two pandas, there are various pets deposited by other tourists, as well as a batch of animals bought from abroad by Xiangjiang Ocean Park, including brown bears, reindeers, vultures, etc., totaling more than 20. But after opening the cabin, all the animals disappeared. The cages of the animals were either opened with latches, or collapsed in a large area, with serious damage and violent destruction. The airport was the first to make a fuss. The tourists paid the money and put the pets in the cabin and transported them according to the regulations of the airline. As a result, when they got off the plane, the animals disappeared out of thin air. No matter how the airline staff explained, the passengers would not give in. It's not that they don't understand, but that they don't believe it. The plane was flying in the sky, how could the animals run away? Where could they run to? If someone hijacked the plane, that would be even more ridiculous. They didn't rob money, kill people, or crash into buildings. They spent so much effort to steal a large group of animals secretly. Could it be a group of perverted supermen who love to eat rare animals? The only reliable explanation is that the airline company violated regulations and something major happened in the transport warehouse, and all the animals died. The ocean park technicians who were responsible for escorting the plane were also dumbfounded. They were responsible for the entire escort, which means boarding the plane from Yangchuan Zoo, and then returning to the ocean park after the plane landed in Xiangjiang. During the flight, according to the safety regulations of the airline, people are prohibited from entering the transport warehouse, so these technicians sat in the cabin with other tourists and had no idea what happened in the transport warehouse. No one expected that at an altitude of tens of thousands of feet, nearly 50 animals would disappear out of thin air. Damn, is there a black hole in the cabin? Suck these guys into another dimension? The technical staff of Ocean Park cannot take care of the animals of other tourists, but they cannot ignore the 2 pandas and other large and small animals they bought. Every 2 or 3 years, Ocean Park will purchase a batch of rare animals from abroad to enrich the park. Those dozens of animals were all purchased by Ocean Park from Europe and North America at high prices, which spent Ocean Park's 3-year budget for purchasing animals at once, and the economic value is very high. As for the 2 giant pandas, let alone, they are priceless treasures in China. Moreover, they are gifts from the mainland to Hong Kong, which is of great significance. This black pot is too big, and several technicians can neither bear it nor dare to bear it, so they notified the leadership of Ocean Park at the first time. The leadership of Ocean Park did not understand what it meant at first. What did it mean to be missing? There were dozens of animals that were fine, not small guys like rats and fleas. The smallest otter was more than half a meter long. How could they disappear at an altitude of tens of thousands of feet? After finding out the situation, the leadership of Ocean Park was under great pressure. Not counting the 2 pandas, this is definitely a major liability accident for the other animals alone. If the animals cannot be found, the Ocean Park will lose its reputation. No country in the world will cooperate with such an unreliable company in the future. The company's stock price will inevitably plummet. The saliva of the Hong Kong people can drown them. At least 1/3 of the people from top to bottom will be severely punished, and even several heavyweights will resign. Even if the animals are found, it is enough to show that there are major loopholes in the management of the Ocean Park, which will cause a big storm. In fact, this matter should be blamed on the overconfidence of the managers of the Hong Kong Ocean Park. According to common sense, before the 2 pandas left the mainland, Yangchuan City Zoo should be fully responsible. After entering Hong Kong, the responsibility was transferred to the Hong Kong Ocean Park. One thing is certain, those animals could not disappear out of thin air at an altitude of tens of thousands of feet. They were either when boarding the plane or after getting off the plane. In other words, before boarding the plane in Yangchuan City, the responsibility of the pandas was on the Yangchuan City Zoo, and after getting off the plane, the responsibility was on the Ocean Park. Like many large companies in Hong Kong, Ocean Park Entertainment Company is completely westernized, and somewhat disdains the relatively backward and rough model of Yangchuan Zoo. Therefore, whether it was sending the pandas to Yangchuan or picking up the pandas a few days ago, Ocean Park proposed that they would be responsible from beginning to end. Originally, the veteran keepers of Yangchuan Zoo were a little unconvinced. Isn't this looking down on people? Su Ming had a special chat with several keepers for this matter. As long as the animals are safe and sound, the other party is willing to take responsibility, and we can save our worries. Who knew that the prophecy would come true and such a bizarre incident happened? Now Yangchuan Zoo does not bear any responsibility, and all the pressure falls on Ocean Park. Moreover, according to the original lease contract, the two pandas should have returned to Hong Kong at the end of next month, but it was the Hong Kong Zoo that proposed to return them early. This issue is difficult to say. To put it mildly, if Ocean Park acts according to the contract, perhaps there will be no accidents. To put it seriously, this is malicious and destructive. It was written in black and white that they would be returned next month, so why did they suddenly take it back in advance? And on the way to take it back, the two giant pandas sent to Hong Kong disappeared? Isn't this too much of a coincidence? To be more serious, what is the background of the company responsible for Hong Kong Ocean Park? What is their real purpose in Xiangjiang? This is a huge problem. Can't think about it, don't dare to think about it. So even if Su Ming doesn't call Ocean Park, the other party must contact Su Ming immediately. What's going on? Su Ming put down the phone and was puzzled for a while. He really wasn't doing anything secretly this time. He was very cooperative in the whole process of recovering the giant panda. Immediately afterwards, Director He of the Tourism Bureau called. Just as the technical staff of the Ocean Park knew the heavy responsibility and did not dare to hide it from the park's senior management, the park's senior management understood the relationship better and reported the situation to the superior authority as soon as possible. Both sides of the Taiwan Strait were mobilized by these animals that suddenly disappeared. Xiangjiang and Yangchuan City launched investigations at the same time. Yangchuan City set up a special task force, led by a city leader, a deputy director of the Municipal Bureau, a deputy director of the Tourism Bureau, and the director. Serve as the deputy team leader, specialize in handling the project, and hold an emergency meeting in the afternoon of the next day. Since the two pandas lived in the Yangchuan Zoo for a period of time before they disappeared and were handed over directly from the Yangchuan Zoo, Su Ming attended the meeting on behalf of the zoo to assist in the investigation. Before the meeting, let me emphasize 2 points. The city leader who led the team made it clear, first, the animals missing in this incident have great economic value and huge social impact. No matter from which aspect, they must be taken seriously. Second, although the situation has not been completely understood, but judging from the existing evidence, the party responsible for the accident is Xiangjiang Ocean Park. We invited comrades from Yangchuan Zoo to help us with our work as industry experts. I hope everyone can understand this meaning. We must pay attention during implementation. We also hope that the comrades in the zoo will not feel any psychological burden. After speaking, he looked at Su Ming and nodded slightly. Su Ming smiled and expressed understanding. The words assisting in the investigation are a bit scary, and it feels like he is being treated as a suspect, but Lao He made it very clear when he called Su Ming before and asked Su Ming to come to the meeting. This time, he really wanted the zoo to assist. Okay, old son, please introduce the specific situation you have so far, the city leader said to a middle-aged police officer with an angular face. Lao Sun, the deputy director of the Municipal Bureau and the direct superior of Nangong Yan's uncles, worked his way up from the grassroots level as a criminal police officer. He has rich experience in handling cases and specializes in handling major and difficult cases with significant impact. Just sitting in the conference room without speaking, he has a faint evil aura, which is very calming. The lights in the conference room dimmed, and the projector displayed the evidence currently held by the police on the big screen. After the incident, both sides of the Taiwan Strait immediately mobilized airport surveillance on the road from Yangchuan Zoo to Yangchuan Airport, and various formal documents. The following points can be determined at present. First, the vehicle transporting the animals did not stop halfway after leaving the zoo. They took Provincial Highway 201 and went directly to the airport expressway, which led directly to the airport. From the airport passage camera, you can clearly see all the animals. Many of them can be excluded from going from the zoo to the airport. The possibility of theft on the road, of course. He glanced at Su Ming and said, "This also rules out the possibility that the two pandas were swapped at the Yangchuan Zoo." Several leaders of the investigation team have repeatedly helped the zoo prove its innocence, not only to reassure Su Ming and all the employees of Yangchuan Zoo, but also to hope that Su Ming can use his professionalism to fully cooperate to help solve the case. Su Ming was not an ungrateful person, so he smiled at Director Sun and expressed his gratitude. Director Su continued, "Second, according to the video provided by Xiangjiang Airport, I want to say here that the video of Xiangjiang Airport has no blind spots. It will start recording when the cabin is turned on." Indeed, as the other party responded, when the door was opened, the animals in the cabin had disappeared, so it can also be assumed that the animals disappeared before the plane landed and the cabin was opened. This situation is getting more and more weird. In the absence of conclusive evidence, although everyone has their own speculations about mysterious black holes and supernatural powers, no one with a little common sense takes these legends too seriously. It's just a joke. From the perspective of insiders, this must be an organized, premeditated, highly intelligent and high-tech theft crime. But now the evidence is conclusive, that is, neither before boarding the plane nor after getting off the plane, there is only one possibility left: those animals did disappear during the flight, or were stolen. How can this be? How? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 633. Far away from the ground, almost 30,000 feet away, with every sudden attack through the turbulence, the animals in the cabin thought they were locked in a cage. Everyone had an incredible thought. Dozens of animals were really stolen in mid-air. Those are not dozens of cockroaches, ants, and fleas that can be carried away in one pocket, but dozens of large animals and beasts. Who can survive in the turbulent flow at an altitude of 30,000 feet without anyone noticing? Steal these big guys from the closed cabin? Could it be that he really encountered an unknowable force? But Lao Sun's next words broke everyone's unrealistic guesses. According to the black box information records provided by the airline, the aircraft did not experience any abnormalities during flight, and no other abnormal flying objects were found on the route. The fuselage of the aircraft is intact, and the possibility of being stolen in mid-air can basically be ruled out. As for some speculation, a black hole, I have been working on cases for decades, and I don't believe in this kind of thing. If it is true, it is equivalent to declaring the case unsolvable, so it is not considered. The city leader who led the team nodded slightly. He was indeed an experienced comrade. The last half of Lao Sun's sentence was not just for fun, but to strengthen the confidence of everyone present and to express to all parties that they must get to the bottom of it. Determination. "Old son, let me interrupt you, director," he said with a smile, "then will there be, unreliable people on the plane?" The director is right. On this point, the airline I specially sent someone to contact will probably send the information of all passengers on this flight tomorrow morning. However, according to the general rules of this route, most of them are ordinary passengers. Tourists and frequent travelers between the two places should not be confused. Of course, this needs further investigation. Based on Lao Su's experience, although the specific personnel information of the flight has not yet been sent back, since he said this in public, there is a high probability that there will be no problem with the passengers. This is really a strange case. It was okay before getting on the plane, it was okay during landing, and it was okay during the flight. So where did the problem lie? Currently, there is only one loophole. Please look here. Lao Sun's words suddenly attracted everyone's attention to the big screen. He pressed the remote control of the projector in his hand, and a scene of the airport tarmac appeared on the big screen. This is a picture taken from a very far away place. In the picture, the large passenger plane is at least 300 to 400 meters away from the shooting position. It only occupies a small part of the center of the picture and is very blurry. The head of the aircraft is facing the direction of shooting. This is a picture taken around the apron of Yangchuan Airport. From the time when the airport staff took over the animals, the shuttle bus brought them into the airport, until the transport warehouse door closed, there were no cameras following the entire process. So there is a problem. It can only be found on this section of the road. Have the relevant operators checked? The team leader asked. Lao Sun nodded. All day yesterday, our main force was investigating relevant staff. No matter which link, there were at least 3 people present to prove each other. But based on the current situation, at other times, all have clear camera data, only the camera data of this section is missing. Reinvestigate, investigate rigorously, investigate in detail. The team leader put his hands on the table and said seriously, comrades, many years of work experience tell us that the place where negligence is most likely to occur is where the problem occurs. If something goes wrong in this link and the animals are taken away in Yangchuan City, then no matter who is responsible, we in Yangchuan City have the responsibility to find out the whereabouts of these animals. The leader's gaze swept around the conference room and landed on Su Ming. He asked, Director Su, Lao Sun is an expert in tracking down people and criminals. You are an expert in animals. You are an expert on the habits and characteristics of animals, no better. Do you have any suggestions? At present, it seems that almost all the clues have been cut off. The only possible area is just a guess based on the elimination method without any real evidence. The investigation is very difficult. Su Ming was invited to attend the meeting because he hoped that he would assist in the investigation. At this time, no one else could speak. Only Lao Sun, who was responsible for the investigation, and Su Ming, the expert, had the responsibility to put forward their own opinions and views. Su Ming held the handle of the seat and was about to stand up when the city leader waved his hand and showed his first smile since the meeting. Sit down and talk, sit down and talk. Su Ming nodded, sat down again, considered his words, and spoke slowly. The leaders just analyzed it from the perspective of the location of the incident, or the location of the crime. According to the current level of technology, if you can find the location of the incident, you can follow the clues and find many clues. This was a summary of nonsense. Everyone present looked at Su Ming quietly and listened to him continue. As the leader said, investigators, Director Sun is an expert. As for me, I am familiar with animals because I often deal with them. Su Ming smiled. I just suddenly thought, who is this criminal suspect? Is there such a possibility that it is not the criminals who stole these animals, but these animals? The eyes around him became more and more surprised. Su Ming smiled and finished his last words, these animals escaped on their own. As soon as the words fell, there was a commotion in the conference room. People were whispering to each other, and some were looking at Su Ming incredulously. Did the animal escape on its own? Under the full guardianship of humans, he escaped from a locked cage and a closed cabin without anyone noticing? Is that still an animal? It's so exciting. Everyone, please be quiet. We asked Director Su to come here because we want him to provide opinions from the perspective of our negligence and his professional direction. The city leader raised his hand slightly, suppressed the noise in the conference room, and asked Su Ming, Xiao Su, why do you have such an idea? You might as well analyze it for us. Explain it first, no matter what you say is right or not. Now is the discussion stage, you can say anything as long as you think it will help solve the case. Okay. Su Ming took advantage of the little commotion just now to clear his thoughts and spoke slowly. First, the intelligence of animals is actually much higher than we imagined. I made a movie some time ago, using animals as the protagonists. During the training process, the animals showed super strong imitation abilities. Of course. Yes, not all animals can imitate, but as long as one or two animals in a group can imitate humans, it is possible to escape. The pursuit of freedom is the third instinct of animals, only after eating and mating. If given the chance, they will definitely choose to escape. Director Sun also said just now that among the animals that escaped, there were several gorillas and pandas. These are all highly intelligent animals. Then so many animals escaped together, why were they not discovered? Lao Sun asked. I don't know, maybe it's a coincidence, maybe these animals deliberately avoid humans, Su Ming said. As I said again, you can't underestimate animals. My hometown, Suntown, is in the mountains. In the surrounding mountains, there are many large animals, but if humans deliberately look for them, they may not be able to find them, because animals instinctively avoid humans, coupled with their super sense of smell, hearing, vision, and strictly speaking, the anti-tracking ability of animals, much stronger than humans. Lao Sun nodded, indicating his approval. Second, in the slideshow Director Sun showed just now, I saw that many cages were damaged and twisted, and had been destroyed by violence. If they were humans, they could have used tools to cut more standard holes. Among the animals that disappeared this time, there are animals like grizzly bears and pandas that are powerful and have strong gnawing abilities. Yes, I remembered that in ancient times, pandas were called gold-eating beasts. Lao Sun's eyes lit up and he asked Su Ming, Xiao Su, do modern pandas still retain this ability? Yes, Su Ming nodded affirmatively. A few decades ago, when there were more pandas in the wild, in mountainous areas where pandas were found, farmers would take away their iron farm tools home before going to bed at night, just because they were afraid of pandas. He sneaked down the mountain in the middle of the night and chewed up the iron farm tools. The clue you provided is very valuable. I will immediately ask someone to check whether there are any teeth marks on the cage, said Lao Sun. In the deadlock with no way to start, an obvious clue suddenly appeared, which shocked the spirits of everyone present. The team leader once laughed and said, "Look, we found the right expert when we found him." As the saying goes, you can use a rock from another mountain to attack a jade. What's more, Xiao Su himself is well known in our city, talented and beautiful. Xiao Su, you just said the first and second, let's talk about the third. Su Ming felt bitter in his mouth. Boss, I only thought of 2 points, and I wasn't prepared to mention the third one. Fortunately, he is in this field, he is a bit quick-witted and has a good understanding of the industry situation. He said, this third one is actually some real-life examples. As far as I know, there are many cases of animals escaping from prison. There are often some cases in foreign zoos. Highly intelligent animals escaped from the zoo under the nose of the administrator. I often see on the internet that ferocious beasts hurt people in certain foreign cities. Although the news focuses on the fact that ferocious beasts appear in cities and hurt people, most of these animals they escaped from the local zoo. Animal escapes are completely possible. And, haha, let's just talk about pandas. These guys are naturally restless. I have a zoo group with colleagues from zoos all over the country. The administrator of the Sichuan Zoo Panda breeding base posted several small videos, all of which showed pandas secretly escaping from prison. The escape methods are amazing, and they are simply smarter than humans. Can you send it to me? Lao Sun asked. There were a few short videos in the group, and Su Ming found them just by surfing the internet. Looking at it, some people couldn't help but laugh. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 634. It was too troublesome to watch the videos one by one on the mobile phone. Even though the team leader was over 50 years old, he really kept pace with the times. He asked Lao Sun to set up a WeChat group and add all the members of the investigation team to it, and asked Su Ming to the video of Panda's jailbreak was posted to the group for everyone to watch and to facilitate communication and notification of future case progress. After the video was sent, everyone present looked down at their phones. As they watched, some couldn't help but laugh. The pandas in the video are so smart. Some of them grabbed the iron railings and climbed over the wall. Some took advantage of the moment when the administrator turned around to put the food, rolled and slipped out of the gate. One little guy actually escaped after the administrator left. When we were in the panda house, like a thief, we followed the administrator out of the gate very quietly. If there were no surveillance cameras, he would have escaped. There was even a panda, taking the opportunity of having a fight with the administrator, lying on the administrator's body and stealing the key hanging on his waist. Humans have been sitting too firmly at the top of the food chain for too long. Who would have thought that animals could be so cunning if they hadn't seen it with their own eyes? The team leader was also speechless. He shook his head and smiled at Old Sun. Old Sun, it seems that a large number of opponents will appear in your future investigation work. Old Sun still looked serious, nodded, and said, the advice provided by Director Su is very important. Make bold guesses and verify carefully. Xiao Su, Lao Sun will contact you frequently in the future. I hope your zoo can try its best to cooperate. If the animals really escape from prison on their own, we will still need your help in the future capture work. Well, do you have any requirements, the leader? Ask. Su Ming thought for a while and said, the request is out of the question. I want to see the scene. If there is any progress in the investigation in the future, I would also like to know more about the relevant information without violating confidentiality. Of course there is no problem. You are a member of the investigation team. Of course you should know the results of the investigation team. Next, all parties reported on the situation within their jurisdiction, quickly arranged their respective work tasks, and the team leader made a final summary. Comrades, this case happened suddenly, the circumstances of the case are bizarre, and it is very difficult to solve the case. I hope everyone can go all out and live up to the expectations of our superiors and the masses. Finally, I would like to emphasize that due to the special nature of the incident, in order to avoid unnecessary due to speculation and panic, the case of missing animals will not be announced to the public for the time being and will be investigated secretly. Everyone here should pay attention to confidentiality. After the meeting, Su Ming went to Yangchuan International Airport the next day. Deputy Director Sun initially planned to ask comrades in the bureau to take him with him to make his identity clear and facilitate his work. But Su Ming thought about it, and as the leader said at the meeting, Director Sun was the one who investigated people, and he knew a lot about animals. The investigator himself was a layman, so if he wanted to ask about the airport staff, it was better to let Deputy Director Sun and the others go. It's more appropriate to do. So his visit this time can be regarded as an unannounced visit. Of course, not everyone can enter the airport tarmac at will. In order to facilitate the investigation, Director Sun still photographed a capable subordinate and obtained a pass for free access to all parts of the airport through the airport management. Su Ming was very depressed when he saw this capable subordinate. It was not good to send anyone, so he sent Nangong Hua, the captain of the city bureau's criminal police team, to assist him. Nangong Hua has an only daughter named Nangong Yan. Uncle, Su Ming said carefully. Lao Sun actually had good intentions. He knew the relationship between the two and made it easier for them to cooperate. But Nangong Hua probably didn't expect to meet Su Ming so early. Su Ming, his 5 brothers, passed the test one by one. According to the plan, but it's the big boss at the end. Work is work, and family matters are family matters. Nangong Hua neither kept a straight face nor showed an affectionate smile. He looked calm and said in a light tone, "Let's talk about the case first." "Okay, okay." Su Ming smiled. Despite his future father-in-law's lukewarm demeanor, Su Ming still heard a hint of cordiality in his words. The word family affairs, in fact, to a certain extent, they already recognized Su Ming and Nangong Yan and regarded Su Ming as one of their own. Of course, this also requires Su Ming to listen. If you were an ignorant young man, seeing Nangong Hua's arrogant face, and then thinking about how I treat your daughter so well and you shamed me, you might have picked up the grudge on the spot. If that's the case, it's hard to say whether he can successfully pass Nangong Hua's test in the future. The two of them were wearing casual clothes and wandering around the safe area on the grass around the airport tarmac seemingly aimlessly. Nangong Hua came to assist Su Ming, so he followed Su Ming. Seeing Su Ming walking around, sometimes stopping to stare at the airplanes and workers around him, and sometimes looking at the surrounding environment, Nangong Hua didn't know what kind of medicine Su Ming was selling in his gourd. He is a criminal police officer, and most of his investigations involve dealing with people. He is very good at finding loopholes in people's words and eyes, and then breaking through the other party's defense line. This kind of method of just looking, visiting, and not asking questions is rarely seen by Nangong Hua. After walking around for several hours, with dozens of planes taking off and landing, Su Ming finally ended his observation with satisfaction. "What did you see?" Nangong Hua asked. "This is what I think. If it was really an animal escape, then the airport staff must not have known about it, otherwise there would have been something happening at that time. Based on this premise, asking the airport staff may not necessarily lead to anything useful. It's not that they deliberately lied, but they didn't know at all. Then there is only one possibility: the animal slipped away due to the negligence of the airport staff." "Did you find anything?" Nangong Hua nodded. This kid's logic was very clear. "I've been watching it all afternoon, and I really found a small pattern, or a small problem." Su Ming pointed from the window to a plane that was loading and unloading cargo below. Several workers were carrying a lot of luggage from the shuttle bus. Transport warehouse. Every time after the luggage is loaded, the plane does not take off immediately. The time is short. There is about 2 minutes between loading and takeoff. The longest time is more than 10 minutes. And during this time here, the door to the transport cabin is not closed immediately. Of course, in most cases, the door will be closed quickly after the luggage is loaded. But there is a time difference after all. Nangong Hua's eyes lit up. Maybe the animals took advantage of this time difference to escape. "Yeah. My uncle is smart," Su Ming flattered him with ease, and then said, "I carefully looked at the employees responsible for loading. After loading, many people left the scene on the shuttle bus." After finishing speaking, he paused deliberately, waiting for Nangong Hua to continue his smartness. "You don't have to ask me to tell you what you have already guessed." Nangong Hua chuckled. "If there is a situation where the transport warehouse door is not closed immediately and the porter leaves the scene, Animal Theory Mountain will escape opportunity." "Yes," Su Ming blinked. "So, next, I walked around again, looking for any damage to the surrounding fences and walls, so that the animals could take the opportunity to escape." "Huh? Did you find it?" Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 635. "Have you found the gap?" Nangong Hua blurted out. Su Ming smiled bitterly and shook his head. "No." Nangong Hua was stunned, and then glared at Su Ming fiercely. "You kid are making fun of me. You said so much in the previous part, which made me want to solve the case. As a result, at the last step, the most critical step, you said this. Then most of the previous part was in vain?" Nangong Hua has been a criminal police for a long time, and his temper is actually quite violent. He said an internet slang in his mind: "If you don't find it, what can you say?" This really can't be blamed on Suming. There is no wall around Yangchuan Airport. In the four directions, one part is blocked by fences, another part is quite expensive tempered glass, and another direction is open. Of course, there are people on duty in that direction, and it is impossible to enter and exit at will, not to mention that a large group of animals disappeared under the eyes of the security guards. But I found a hole, Su Ming smiled. Yangchuan Airport is located outside the city, more than 20 kilometers away from the edge of the city. It is originally a wilderness. One direction faces Yangchuan City, two directions are endless fields, and another direction is a few kilometers away from the Qinling Mountains. It is precisely because of its remote location that it was officially put into use last year, so the facilities are incomplete and there are blind spots in monitoring. If it is a mature airport that has been used for many years, there will be no blind spots in monitoring. For example, the Xiangjiang airport where the plane landed is full of cameras without blind spots, so it can be completely ruled out that the animal escaped from the Xiangjiang airport. Su Ming found a big hole under a remote fence facing the Qinling Mountains. The soil around the hole is very new, and it can be seen that it was just dug out. At first glance, it seems to be caused by construction, but according to the information Su Ming obtained, among the animals that escaped, there are adult pangolins. It is not difficult for pangolins to dig such a hole to escape from the airport. Moreover, among the animals traveling together this time, there are far more than just pangolins who can dig holes, even pandas have this skill. Theoretically, all animals with claws can participate in digging holes. Nangong Hua's face turned pale when he saw this big hole. What a joke! His men had been investigating the airport for 2 days, but they didn't notice such an obvious clue. What the hell, if Su Ming hadn't discovered it, if he found out that the animals really escaped from this hole in the future, he, as the captain, would be derelict in his duty. In fact, this can't be blamed on the police officers who came to investigate before. The airport has only been in use for a year, and many places are still under construction. Building materials and large and small facilities that are halfway through construction can be seen everywhere on the edge of the airport. In addition, everyone is used to thinking that the disappearance of animals is related to people. Who would have thought that this inconspicuous hole was dug by animals? Even if the animals escaped, according to the strength and size of the guys leading them, they could directly break through the fence with brute force. Why bother digging a hole? However, Su Ming thought that if the leaders of the escape were two pandas, this would be completely possible. The two pandas were smart. They had been following him for so long, and after being baptized by mental power, they were no different from humans. They used to be like huskies, especially fond of vandalism. Every time they went to my office, they made a mess of it, and I taught them a lesson several times. Therefore, under my words and deeds, the moral standards of the two pandas have been greatly improved, and they have a deep awareness of caring for public property, speaking of which, I am quite proud of their noble character. Xiao Su, you have done a great job. Nangong Hua patted Su Ming on the shoulder. I will immediately ask the Bureau to allocate experts to come to this cave to collect evidence. So many animals, if they really got out of this cave, they will definitely leave traces of fur. Hee, aren't we experts in our zoo? Both parties called for people. Soon the veterinarian came to the scene with several professional breeders, and the Bureau also sent a forensic doctor. I'll go first. The veterinarian wore this big mask, crouched down and got into the dark cave. Not long after, he crawled out of the cave with his butt sticking out. His whole body was covered with mud, and there was a disgusting smell on his body. Everyone looked at him. The veterinarian was sweating profusely. After taking off the narrow mouth, he exhaled heavily. No, I'm dying of suffocation. What happened? Nangong Hua asked impatiently. Bastard, oh, leader, I'm not talking about you. The veterinarian waved his hand. There is animal feces underneath, a thick layer, and it has produced methane. I almost died of suffocation. Fortunately, it was discovered early, otherwise if someone was smoking at the entrance of the cave, it might have caught fire. A forensic doctor went down without hesitation and came out with a stern face, "There is really a smell of methane inside. It is recommended to dig a hole immediately to let the methane dissipate." The scalps of several people present were numb when they heard this. This is an airport. If there is really a fire, it will definitely be a fatal matter. What the veterinarian said is true. Fortunately, it was discovered early. Is it animal feces, not human? Nangonghua was still a little worried and asked. Several people in the zoo almost laughed. What kind of human being is crazy to dig a hole and run down to poop? It's animal feces, and there are more than one kind. The amount is quite large, said the forensic doctor who went down. The people at the airline are too lazy. Look at how they made the animals stay in prison. No wonder they want to escape. They can't hold it in any longer. A very young intern whispered. Although it is not known how the animals escaped from human sight, the hole has been found after all. The originally confusing case has a tendency to become clearer. The pressure on the police and the zoo people present suddenly decreased a lot after hearing the young man's childish words. Several people laughed. Nangonghua waved his hand, "There is a long way to go. Now we can only confirm that the animals went out through this hole. Other things cannot be confirmed. I will report the progress to the leader first. Xiao Su, you are responsible for continuing to find out the truth. How did these animals escape? Where did they escape to? Is there anyone helping and participating? How can we catch them back?" Oh, Su Ming thought to himself that you really didn't treat me as an outsider. Well, you just said that I have to check all the problems easily. I am not Sherlock Holmes. Just check it. I dare not offend this old comrade. While pretending to arrange people to investigate, he sent out his mental power in all directions, hoping to find the missing animals in his mental power. Among these animals, the two pandas are old acquaintances, and they can be found as soon as the mental power touches them. There are also many other alien creatures, not Chinese species, and they are very recognizable. Su Ming's current mental power covers an amazing range. If the mental power is tangible, looking down from the sky, you will find a large circular transparent cover centered on the airport, covering a radius of at least 10 kilometers, like a super radar, constantly scanning. Chickens, ducks, fish, mice, birds, snakes, all animals within a dozen kilometers around did not escape Su Ming's detection. But the missing animals were not found. Where did these bad guys go? Originally, animals should live in nature. If they run away, and Su Ming will not really care too much. But the situation is different this time. First, most of the animals that escaped were raised in zoos and may not be able to adapt to life in the wild. Second, many of the alien species do not belong to the Kinling ecosystem and do not exist in China. If they are allowed to survive in China's natural environment, they are likely to destroy the biological chain and cause great harm to the local biological environment. There is another reason. In this incident, in addition to the 3 team leaders who are in charge of the work, Nangonghua, as the captain of the Yangchuan Criminal Police, is the specific person in charge of the case. If the case cannot be solved, Nangonghua may not have an easy time. It's not easy to get past the previous small bosses. Don't fall into the hands of this big boss in your expertise. Su Ming didn't find the animals. He thought calmly and thought that it was probably the 2 pandas who did it. Because only the 2 of them are so smart, other animals don't have the ability to do bad things even if they want to. If the time goes back 2 days to the day when the animals boarded the plane, Su Ming will find that he is too smart. It was the 2 bad pandas who caused the trouble. In fact, Ying Ying and Lele are quite heartless. They changed to other animals and have been with Su Ming for so long that they have developed feelings for him and are reluctant to leave. For example, the finless porpoise family was like this. Although Su Ming used his mental power to do something wrong, it was mainly because they didn't want to leave, so they hit the wall. After the two pandas got on the car, they were in a good mood at first, because they found that there were many different friends in the car, including elks with big branches on their heads, big birds with bald heads, and half-distant relatives who were fat but without dark circles under their eyes, brown bears. Animals have their own way of communicating with each other. A large car of animals quickly got to know on the way to the airport. Animals may not be able to express overly complex thoughts like humans, but they have more acute intuition and instinct than humans, and can easily tell whether the other party can pose a threat to themselves. Simply put, it is to understand who can be bullied, who is similar to oneself, and who must not be provoked. The two pandas were not good looking, but after being with Su Ming for a long time, they had many subtle changes, or evolutions, under the nourishment of spiritual power, and even had a faint residual pressure of spiritual power. In the eyes of other animals, these two pandas were the kind that should never be provoked. Not long after, in the eyes of a group of ordinary beasts, Ying and Lele actually became the boss. Staying in a small cage, the two pandas felt it was quite novel at first, but soon they couldn't stand it. In the zoo, they often ran around with Su Ming, even to Suntown, and were used to freedom. How could they stand being imprisoned in an iron cage of 1 or 2 cubic meters? This feeling of frustration finally accumulated to the peak and broke out when they were carried into a very depressing semi-enclosed space, the transport warehouse. The two pandas decided to escape. As pandas, we must control our own destiny. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 636. For pandas, food and play are the only things they can't live up to. Pay. Match. What kind of ghost is that? I don't understand, I don't understand, I don't want to do it, it's not interesting. The two pandas were unusually honest today. After being lifted off the large transport truck, they were very flattering to the several ocean park technicians who rushed to the truck, nodding and waving, looking harmless. Not only the pandas, but other animals seemed to be surprisingly quiet, lying lazily in their cages, as if waiting to go to the prosperous place of Xiangjiang to live a good life. Several technicians saw this and nodded to each other. The animals' quiet state made them feel relieved. This shows that these outsiders have adapted to the climatic conditions of China in a short period of time without showing signs of acclimatization. What they were most worried about were the two pandas. Before coming, Ocean Park had investigated the zoo and found that this unspectacular second-tier city zoo in mainland China seemed to have a strange attraction to any animal, so they were afraid that something similar to what happened before would happen. The finless porpoise hit the wall in order to leave behind the incident. The finless porpoise was actually an ownerless thing at that time, and it was really hurt when it was killed, but it was not a loss. But the panda is different. It is the treasure of Ocean Park. That is to say, it must be brought back, but it must be brought back safely and intact. What if it was delivered with a big, round head and was happy, but when it was returned, it was open and seeking death? To this end, the technicians specially brought high-efficiency anesthetics imported from abroad. As long as the panda showed the slightest sign of refusing to leave, he would immediately administer an injection without hesitation. This anesthetic is extremely effective and has few side effects. Not to mention pandas, even grizzly bears cannot bear it. Seeing that the panda was so honest along the way, several technicians felt relieved. No matter how small the side effects of anesthetics are, they still have side effects, not to mention that each imported anesthetic is very expensive. In their department's annual budget, they can save whatever they can. Several technicians fed the animals a small amount of food for the last time before entering the airport security gate and making the final handover to the ground staff on the apron. The flight is not long, and if you feed too much, the animal may defecate when it is full. If you do not feed it at all, the animal will starve and become more aggressive. Before boarding the plane, feed 20%-60% of the usual amount of food at a time, depending on the journey. When it was the turn of the panda cage, Ying, who had been very cooperative just now, suddenly turned her back to the technicians, looking downcast and seemed very depressed. The technician was stunned. He was about to get on the plane. Don't make any mistakes at this moment. He quickly turned to another direction to see what was going on. He turned, and Ying followed him and turned around, always facing him with her thick back, just not letting him see her face. The panda wasn't aggressive at all, so the technician simply opened the cage, and the cat ducked in to take a closer look. As soon as he entered the cage, Panda Ying immediately turned her face, made a face at him, and stuck out her pink tongue. She climbed up and hugged his thigh and acted coquettishly. Naughty, the technician breathed a long sigh of relief. It's okay. Pandas are naughty by nature, and they were just teasing these humans on purpose. After putting down the food, the technician turned around and was about to walk out of the cage, but Ying refused to let go. She hugged his thighs with her two fat paws, whining and saying not to let him go, as if she wanted him to stay with her. Play together. Be good. The technician is very experienced. The panda is very strong, and it will definitely not be able to pull it by force. However, its palms are soft and it rarely uses its claws to grab people, so as long as it lifts its legs straight up, it can be pulled out from the two big claws. He quickly raised his leg and got rid of Ying's entanglement. He quickly stepped out of the cage and closed the door with a backhand. Ying drooped her eyes and looked unhappy, like a little old man, squatting in a cage with her hands tightly clasped behind her back. After the technical staff of Ocean Park and the airport ground staff conducted handover procedures, the cages containing the animals were carried by the ground staff onto the shuttle bus. The shuttle bus drove to a large passenger plane in the corner of the tarmac. The transport warehouse door was opened wide and the animals were sent in. After entering the transport warehouse, I found that there were already more than a dozen small cages inside, filled with various pet cats and dogs. Pets and beasts are both animals, but they are fundamentally different. It can be said that in front of these beasts, all the pets originally in the transport warehouse are basically just food. The atmosphere in the transport warehouse suddenly became a little tense. A grizzly bear opened its thick lips and stared at a poodle with his teeth leaking out. A bald eagle squinted its eyes, and a sharp-looking eagle covered in green all around. Little lizards, and those pets are not to be outdone. Although these little guys are not good at fighting, they have been following their human masters for a long time, and they are all as clever as ghosts. They are very smart. Seeing that there are cages on both sides between the two sides, there is no trace of them at all. Any danger will immediately make you crazy. Woof. A dog barked to break the deadlock, tensions were rising, and a verbal battle was about to break out in the cabin. Normally, Pandas Lele and Ying would definitely be worried about the world being in chaos, and they would love for a big melee to be lively. But today is different, the two of them have a big plan. Ying's little fist was clenched tightly and held behind her back. There was a little treasure hidden in her fist. The current situation must not be allowed to get out of hand. Once the animals on both sides start fighting, it will inevitably alert the humans in blue clothes. Maybe the guys who looked very powerful at the beginning will also come. If that happens, it will be troublesome and nothing can be done. Ah! Woo woo woo, the two pandas almost simultaneously showed their ferocious looks towards the animals on both sides. They opened their mouths wide, revealing their mouths full of snow-white sharp teeth. They stood up and lay on the cage, shaking their heads at the animals on both sides, and their round tails like small fluff balls trembled. They have a fierce heart, but are restricted by their cute and stupid appearance. A naive fat man can't scare people. Two pandas like this, let alone a group of fierce beasts and cunning pets, even a local dog can't scare them. But strangely, after the two of them roared, the other animals immediately quieted down. The most domineering grizzly bear sat on the ground, wiped his saliva, and looked like he was not hungry today and would let you go for the time being. Some weak animals even looked at the two pandas with some fear. The pressure of mental power is no joke. Just like an ordinary person, following the national leaders for many years, even if he is a secretary, security guard, or even a handyman, he will develop a temperament different from ordinary people under the influence of what he hears and sees. Moreover, mental power is not only the cultivation of temperament, but also makes the two pandas evolve to a certain extent. From the biological level, the two pandas are already half a level higher than the other animals present. Humans are snobbish, judging people by their clothes, judging a person by his dress, clothing, housing, and other external things, but animals are different. Their instinctive intuition will put aside all external glitz. In the eyes of all the animals, these two chubby and silly guys are simply two ancient beasts. Although they are a little smaller, their claws are a little shorter, and they have a little more meat on their bellies. This does not affect their tall image in their minds. A ground staff member heard the sound and walked into the transport warehouse. In dozens of cages of different sizes, all the animals were lying quietly, and the atmosphere was harmonious. Seeing him coming, the animals all raised their heads and looked at him innocently. Huh? Did I hear it wrong? They are all very honest. Hey, don't make a fuss, we're about to take off. The ground staff pointed at the animals and muttered a few words, then turned around and left the transport warehouse, returned to the shuttle bus, and several people gathered together to smoke. As soon as this person left, all the animals turned their heads and looked at the panda Yingying. Yingying grinned, stretched out a fist and spread it out. In the fleshy palm, a small key lay flat. Hoo. Animals are not stupid. They are raised by humans, sent around the world, and locked up in zoos for half their lives. They are too familiar with this little metal thing. With this thing, they can open the cage. Lele quickly raised a palm and made a silence gesture at his mouth. When it came to the specific action, there was a little trouble. The keyhole was outside the cage. Although Yingying was smart, her hands were not as flexible as humans. It was not easy for her fleshy claws to hold the key. It was really beyond her ability to insert the key into the invisible keyhole through the cage. She tried twice with trembling hands, but the key was not aligned. The third time, she didn't hold it firmly and the key fell to the ground. Lele's eyes rolled around and he pointed at a baboon in the cage next door. Oh. The baboon immediately understood what Lele meant. His thick lips split, revealing a mouthful of yellow teeth, and he punched his chest twice with his big fist. Leave it to me. Primates like baboons and gorillas are much more flexible than pandas. With a big hand, they firmly grasped the key and aimed it at the keyhole. Insert, twist, pull. A very slight click sound was heard in the cabin. Woo, the baboon's eyes suddenly widened, and he looked at the two pandas who had escaped from the trap excitedly. All the other animals rushed to the side of the cage, staring at them eagerly. The two pandas were responsible for one side of the cage, and they would pull open the latches, and punch the wooden cages to pieces. One by one, the animals were released and followed the pandas. The team was getting bigger and bigger, and all the guys seemed to understand that they could not disturb humans, and they actually restrained their nature of eating and lived in peace. Finally, they arrived at the most troublesome cage. The grizzly bear boss was very depressed. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 637. The boss grizzly bear is the most lethal of these animals. He was a troublesome guy when he was in American zoos. He has a bad temper and a domineering personality. He is a famous big gangster in the zoo. He not only bullies other animals, and several attempts to sneak attack the administrator failed. That's why it was sold. For safety reasons, the grizzly bear's cage is completely made of iron bars, which is the strongest one. The key is also separate and is kept separately by another ocean park technician. At first, the grizzly bear boss felt proud. No matter what, they are all animals, and I have the highest treatment. You bunch of scum. As a result, after starting to escape from prison, the grizzly bear boss was dumbfounded when he saw all the animals escaping. In the end, it was the only one left in the cage. The grizzly bear almost collapsed, lying on the iron railing, looking at the two pandas pitifully. For the sake of everyone being bears, don't leave me a bear here. The two pandas also have numb claws. Although they have learned a few tricks in the martial arts competition, they are not real kung fu pandas after all. They can't do anything when encountering iron railings. A large group of animals surrounded the cage of the grizzly bear boss. The once all-powerful gangster sat down in the cage with a sad face. Watching the time passing by bit, Ying and Lele showed their sharp teeth. Click, the teeth intersected with the iron railing, making a heart-wrenching noise. Pandas are nicknamed iron-eating beasts and gold-devouring beasts. They have good teeth that can chew iron. However, the cage in front of them is not a thin piece of iron, but an iron railing as thick as a thumb. With this bite, Ying and Lele can only it felt like my teeth had been knocked out, my teeth were sore, and my little tail was trembling in pain. However, there were indeed 2 circles of obvious tooth marks on the iron railing. Oh! The baboon's eyes widened, its mouth grew into an O shape, and it exclaimed in a low voice. The grizzly bear clasped his hands together and bowed to the 2 pandas. Ying and Lele looked at each other. The 2 fat men, whose moral character had improved during the period of following Su Ming, felt that they should carry forward the spirit of internationalism and not leave the grizzly bear alone. Keep chewing. Oh, the baboon came over and helped pull the iron bar to one side. Seeing this, the grizzly bear quickly attacked from both inside and outside, holding the iron bar and pulling hard with the baboon. The iron railing shook slightly, but it was too thick. The elk, with antlers as hard as tree forks on its head, shook its head, lowered its head, put the elk's antlers into the cage, and used them as levers to pry the iron fence with all its strength. The 4 slender and powerful deer legs kicked wildly on the ground. The antlers are connected to the head, it really hurts. Next, more animals joined the rescue. A few pets were of little help. They were hopping around with their tails wagging, cheering everyone on. The bald eagle flapped its wings and flew to the entrance of the transportation warehouse, consciously acting as a sentinel and keeping a vigilant eye. Watching the movement outside. Squeak, the iron railing finally made an overwhelmed sound, twisting a little bit. A few minutes later, a round head popped up from the entrance of the transport warehouse that had not yet been completely closed. With dark circles under his eyes, he quickly looked to the left and right to observe the situation. On the shuttle bus on the side of the plane, several ground staff secretly smoked cigarettes inside, waiting for instructions from the command platform to close the cabin door before takeoff. Lele shook her butt and got out of the cabin first, trotting towards the nearest direction to the airport. Behind it, animals of various sizes filed out, forming an orderly queue, spreading their 4 legs, and quietly and quickly followed. The shuttle bus staff on the other side of the plane were not far away. Running away right under your nose. If you take the photo of the passenger plane taken from a distance that Director Sun gave at the meeting, you will find that the animals escaped from this passenger plane. The head of the passenger plane is facing the camera, and the transport bay opening is at the rear of the plane, which just blocks the camera. The animal's escape route is blocked by the plane. The camera can only capture the fuselage, and cannot clearly see what is happening behind it. Since these two planes also carry a large number of animals, in order to avoid causing commotion and attracting too much attention, the planes were parked in the corner of the tarmac, with no one around except the shuttle bus. Due to various coincidences, a rare animal escape was successfully carried out without any danger. It's not appropriate to say success, there is still one last step to go. Lele, who was running at the front, was about to escape from the airport, and his speed was getting faster and faster. Suddenly, there was a sharp pain in his head, and stars were flying in front of his eyes, as if he had hit a mountain. Damn, who installed the glass? And wiped it so clean? The animals were blocked behind the transparent glass on the edge of the airport. Lele's huge body bumped into it. There was not even a crack in the glass. It seemed that the quality was quite good. A glass wall blocks the final road to freedom. On the other side of the glass wall, you can see the green kindling mountains in the distance, and on this side is the territory of mankind. The grizzly boss has been unable to help, and now he finally has a chance to take action. Among the friends present, even though it is the strongest, I don't know if it can break these glass and successfully pass the final stage of escape. The grizzly bear was gearing up, but before he could take action, two pangolins covered in scales climbed up with their long tails shaking. Look at ours. Soon, a big hole appeared. Eagles were flying in the sky and beasts were running on the ground. After the animals came out of the cave, they ran towards the kindling mountains like mercury. Until then, several ground staff members who were smoking in the shuttle bus received the command from the command desk. One of them got off the bus, stood at the transport hatch, entered the password, and the transport hatch, which was taller than a person, slowly folded up and closed. After running all the way, they finally entered the mountain smoothly. Huff, huff. The two pandas leaned against the big tree and panted. Suddenly they felt a little hungry. Dozens of animals, either came to the real nature for the first time without human supervision, or came to the natural environment for the first time. Looking at the surrounding forest, they were a little excited and a little confused. Subconsciously, they surrounded the two leading pandas. Lele and Yingying held their cheeks and thought for a while, and decided to continue to ascend into the mountains and find a safe place to stay first. Any freedom has a price. The greater the freedom, the greater the price to pay. After experiencing the initial excitement of escaping, the fleeing animal army found that they were now facing the most practical problem, finding food. The territories in the mountains are divided into territories. Can these guys, who are used to having everything they want under the care of the zoo and human parents, snatch a piece of territory from the wild animals in kindling mountains? Soon, these hungry guys met their first opponent, a small group of lynx descendants who occupied the mountains as kings. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 638. Misfortunes never come alone, but good fortune never comes alone. The case was originally confusing, but after investigating it according to Su Ming's thinking, he started from the perspective of animals escaping from prison by themselves, and immediately found several important clues. In addition to finding the hole full of animal feces that would produce methane, Su Ming almost restored the crime scene because he knew the habits of those animals too well, especially the two pandas. Nangonghua immediately arranged for people to re-interrogate the relevant ground staff on that day and check the damaged cages. Panda teeth marks were found on the broken edge of the cage, and the ground staff also admitted that after loading the animal cages, they did not close the door immediately, and the interior of the transport warehouse was out of their sight for more than 10 minutes. There is nothing to hide about this, it was done this way before. After moving the goods into the warehouse, the ground staff left the plane and waited for the command from the control desk to assist the pilot in closing the transport warehouse. Although it was an animal this time, it was no different. The animals in the transport warehouse were locked in cages. Could they run away? I was careless. At the same time, a technician at the ocean park finally couldn't stand the strong psychological pressure and took the initiative to confess that the key was lost. This guy actually found that the key was lost that day, but he was afraid of taking responsibility and didn't dare to report it immediately. He struggled in his heart for 2 or 3 days. He couldn't stand it anymore and took the initiative to confess everything. A series of evidence before and after combined can almost form a clear chain of evidence to support Su Ming's conjecture and inference. The only one who was a little unlucky was the technician at the ocean park. The panda escaped and he took the blame. He might be fired. He still has no experience in raising pandas for a long time and on a large scale. If it were the animal keeper at the Shudu Panda Conservation Base, he would definitely know that no matter when he approaches these troublesome fat guys, he must hide his keys, wallets, and snacks on his body. Su Ming thought about it and asked Sister Tong to have some contact with the technician. If he was fired because of this incident, he might as well hire him to work at Yangchuan Zoo. Although he was a little careless, since he could work in Xiangjiang Ocean Park, his skills must be excellent. On the one hand, it was to help the two troublemakers clean up their messes. On the other hand, the zoo was indeed short of professional talents. After receiving Nangong Hua's report, the 3 leaders said 3 good things respectively. Good. Very good. Very good. Suddenly, the case seemed to be clear. There were no criminals with ulterior motives, no so-called mysterious forces that would cause riots. It was just an accident composed of many coincidences. It can even be said that this incident will not cause any social unrest, but will attract everyone's attention and become a very relaxing and interesting topic after dinner. A group of smart animals deceived the administrator and sneaked into the mountains. It sounds like they are not afraid of people at all, but very interesting. It is hard to say which party is responsible. If we must say that there is a responsibility, we can only say that the conditions of Yangchuan Zoo are too good, the level of management is too high, and the animals have lived here for a long time, and they have all become little monsters. After the final confirmation, the news can be announced to the news media, and it must be announced. So many animals, although no one was injured at the airport, but most of them are fierce beasts, not to mention the grizzly bear boss. Even the baboon is not easy to mess with. If someone is injured, it will be troublesome, so the citizens must have a bottom line in their hearts, and try not to go to remote and uninhabited wilderness to play. After weighing the pros and cons, the Xiangjiang side decided that the Xiangjiang Ocean Park would release this news through an entertainment newspaper, treating it as an entertainment news, which can avoid panic to the greatest extent. Xiangjiang will first release it in the TV station's Daily Fun News by the Yangchuan Zoo, and then make reminders through other programs. The column of Daily Fun in the TV station is a bit awkward. It was originally a radio program, and it was only turned into a TV program a year ago. Because the content is light and interesting, the ratings are actually quite good. However, there are too few truly interesting things after all. The TV station does not want to lower the style too much, and turn the cat stealing fish and the dog making a mess at home into fun on the show, so there is only 1 episode per week. The host of the show is Nangong Yan's bestie Shen Ying. Since Shen Ying and Nangong Yan experienced the car smashing incident together last time, she only met Su Ming once when Nangong Yan resigned and invited several colleagues from the radio station who had a good relationship to dinner. Knowing that she was going to interview Su Ming this time, Shen Ying subconsciously painted a professional makeup in front of the mirror in the makeup car, and it took twice as long as usual to appear on the show. 3 sets of clothes that the host often wears, it stands to reason that any one of them is the same. In the past, Shen Ying just picked them up casually, at most thinking about which one she wore last time, and changed to another one this time to avoid repeating. But today, she was troubled by the choice of clothes for a long time. She kept recalling what color clothes Nangong Yan wore during the brief meetings with Su Ming. Finally, she chose a pink suit. Su Ming saw Shen Ying in pink and couldn't help frowning, Wondering what kind of taste this girl had, he didn't like women wearing pink outerwear, especially professional attire, which looked so tacky. The underwear was still the same, so Nangongyan never wore this color when she was alone with him. "Brother-in-law, how do you like my outfit?" Before the shooting started, Shenying finally couldn't help but asked. "Very good," Su Ming looked at it seriously and nodded sincerely. Shenying smiled like a flower. At the foot of the Kinling Mountains, 4 kilometers away from the edge of the airport, traces of escaped animals were found. "So, Director Su, can we assume that these animals have escaped into the mountains and no longer pose a threat to nearby residents?" According to normal inference, animals will instinctively stay away from human settlements, even beasts like bears and wolves are no exception. Su Ming nodded first, and then added, "But I must remind everyone that most of the animals that escaped this time grew up in zoos, and many are pets. Compared with wild animals, they are more adapted to artificial conditions. Therefore, it is very likely that they cannot adapt to life in the mountains and stay on the edge of the mountains, or even appear near human villages and towns, so everyone must be careful. Try not to go to remote areas alone. If you see pandas and non-local animals, please call the police immediately." "So what measures will the police and the zoo take?" Shenying asked. "The police and the zoo have sent people to search the mountains according to the traces left by the animals." You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg Nian Bai. Chapter 639. You have magical powers, I have technology. No matter how powerful the instinctive talents of animals are, no matter how integrated they are with nature, they cannot escape the tracking of human technology. It didn't take long for a team from the zoo and the police to find traces of the animals on the edge of the mountains. There are large and small footprints scattered along the almost dry stream. Judging from the shape and size of the footprints, it seems that a group of animals of different types stayed here for a period of time to drink water. It has been confirmed that they include pandas, grizzly bears, elk, and other animals, the veterinarian said calmly while holding a dose of Izadi's root granules. This time the zoo leader was a veterinarian. As an animal doctor, his understanding of animals is actually better than that of ordinary breeders, absolutely from the inside out, from skin to bone. When he leads the team, he can also provide timely rescue to animals that are not adapted to the wild environment and have health conditions. On the other hand, there are not many people and animals to treat. There are many mosquitoes, rats, and ants in the mountains. If someone in the search team feels uncomfortable, the veterinarian can also help. Gotta be busy. Of course, Su Ming did not dare to talk to the police about the latter consideration. As for the zoo employees, they have long been accustomed to having themselves treated by a guy who treats animals. Su Ming felt somewhat conflicted about searching for these animals. After working with animals for a long time, he can understand how animals feel and yearn for freedom and an unfettered life. They have never had this kind of experience before, so it's okay, but once they can successfully survive the difficult initial days in the mountains, they will soon get used to life in the wild. If it were a group of ordinary captive animals, it would be difficult to do so without human help. But among this group of animals, there are 2 pandas who have been dealing with spiritual power for a long time, so the situation is different. Once you get used to living freely in the wild, if you are captured and taken back to a zoo, it is tantamount to a human being in jail. It is an invisible harm to the psychology and physiology of animals. But the problem is that to be fair to animals, humans have to make sacrifices, which is not fair enough to Ocean Park. These animals were indeed bought by Ocean Park at a huge price. Why should Ocean Park suffer losses if it messes with whom? There are also the 2 pandas who bear great significance. Su Ming not only hopes to find the animals as soon as possible, but also hopes that they can escape human capture. Therefore, If Su Ming personally leads the team, as long as his position is slightly biased, he can help the animals escape from human capture. Of course, it can also allow humans to capture the animals as quickly as possible. Prompted by this ambivalence, he simply chose to be neutral and let the veterinarian lead the team. Whether he could catch those animals depends on God's will. Based on the depth of the footprints in the mud and the freshness of the mud around the footprints, this group of animals should have been gone for less than a day. A forensic doctor with knowledge of zoology analyzed. In addition, we found no animal feces, which shows that they haven't eaten yet, so they can't walk far if they're hungry. Woof woof woof. A police dog barked in a certain direction deep in the forest. This is the direction, comrades, work harder. Chase. People chasing dogs, separated by mountains, dogs chasing dogs, separated by gauze. The police dog relied on its keen sense of smell to completely find the right direction. On a small hill less than 2 kilometers away from the tracking team, the group of escaped the animals are getting together. The 4 lynx squatted on the edge with both distress and annoyance, watching helplessly as these uninvited guests ate up all the food they had just caught in the morning. The grizzly bear hugged half of his calf and chewed it until his mouth bled. He sat next to the lynx grandchildren and stared at them maliciously. The lynx is a feline that looks like a cat, but is much larger than a cat. It looks like a mutated super cat. An adult lynx can weigh about 50 kilograms, making it a medium-sized beast. The combat effectiveness is comparable to that of a leopard. Ancient Chinese nobles had the habit of domesticating lynx for hunting. This habit reached its peak during the Tang dynasty. Regardless of male or female nobles, everyone loved to raise such dangerous big guys, especially those with strong personalities during the Tang dynasty. The princesses and county lords went out to participate in hunting parties, and they were embarrassed to see people without a lynx grandson. According to general habits, lynx grandchildren are animals that like the cold and rarely appear in the Kinling Mountains. The 2 adult parents of this family came here a few years ago for some unknown reason and settled on the edge of the Kinling Mountains. In this position, the medium-sized beast had almost no natural enemies, and it soon became the overlord of the forest in this area. After a few years, it lived a very nourishing life, became fat and strong, and even gave birth to a pair of children. The good days came to an abrupt end this morning. A large group of hungry uninvited guests broke into their territory. The first thing Father Link's son found was a poodle running around like a headless fly. He was stunned for a moment. He had never seen such a furry little guy before. However, both in terms of size and speed, he was clearly just a fighter. Scumbag. The key is, it looks delicious. Although he had just caught a lot of prey in his lair, there was never too much to eat, so Father Link's son launched the attack without hesitation. The little poodle was frightened on the spot. Its 4 short legs were shaking like sieve chaff. It looked at the big monster rushing from the treetops in horror. With a puff, it was frightened to out with a pool of hot urine. Just when the lynx grandson was about to pounce on the poodle, a long red arm appeared out of thin air. With its arms relaxed, it grabbed the poodle and jumped up like lightning. Oh oh oh! The big red-haired baboon is holding the poodle with one hand, and is dangling on the treetop with the other hand. It grins at the lynx grandson, looking like, what the hell are you going to do? The lynx grandson was slightly startled. What kind of monster is this? It looks similar to the Monkey King on the hill next door, but it seems a bit too big, right? Could it be that the Monkey King and his grandfather are here? The color of the fur is wrong too. Why is it red? Could it be that the father of the monkey on the mountain next door is actually a red-haired old man deeper in the mountain? Link's son was a little confused. You will be confused, but you must not give up the food you have received, no matter whether you are a monkey or an old man. This is the principle and bottom line of survival. Such a big red-haired monkey is not easy to deal with. Link's son's father estimates that he may not be able to defeat the opponent with full confidence, let alone stop the opponent from escaping. It let out a low roar, signaling to his wife and children not far away. The lynx grandson is a master hunter, and the cooperation of the small family team is superb. The red-haired baboons are the pioneers of the escaped animals. The mountain road is difficult to navigate. In addition to the bald eagle, the giant baboons that can leap on the trees and the few small pet dogs are the fastest. The big baboon was hanging on the treetop, looking at the lynx grandson with the same curiosity. What? It looks really scary, and it seems so fierce. It's really unsafe in the mountains. Fortunately, there are two panda kings who are taking us around. Just as I was thinking about it, a slight vibration came from the treetop that the big baboon was holding onto. An adult female lynx grandson, not much smaller than the lynx grandson's father, quietly climbed up the tree and tiptoed along the branches. Get closer to the big baboon hanging in the tree. Oh, the big red-haired baboon was dumbfounded, with its mouth wide and a confused look on its face. How to deal with this? There was a big monster on the ground, and a smaller monster came up from the tree. It was blocked at both ends and couldn't escape. I'm just a baboon, not a legenze, and I don't have wings. Where are you going this time? It doesn't have wings, but some have wings. An eagle cry resounded through the sky, and the bald vulture uncle, who was laughed at by everyone all the way, fell from the sky, and his claws pierced through gold and cracked stone rushed to the head of the female lynx grandson. This was an adult vulture, with a wingspan of 1.5 meters, which immediately blocked the sun and covered the sky. The female lynx grandson on the branch was startled. On the flat ground, it may not be afraid of vultures, but on the treetops, it must pay most of its attention to maintaining balance. It also has to pay attention to guarding against the big red-haired baboon. This big guy has well-developed chest muscles and is as big as a sand bowl. Fists, being punched in the face is probably very uncomfortable. Before she could be scratched in the face by the vulture uncle, the female lynx jumped down from the tree quickly. The vulture landed steadily on the treetops, and together with the red-haired baboon hanging at its feet, stared at the lynx grandson and his wife. Damn it, are you here to help? The lynx grandson and his wife have been kings and lords of this territory for many years. Today is the first time they have been defeated, and they are very depressed. You have help, and so do we. Two younger lynxes stepped on the dead leaves and appeared in the woods. Although the young lynx grandchildren are not as experienced as their parents in hunting, they are at the most physically powerful and energetic stage in their lives. They dare to fight hard and are best able to fight tough battles. 4 against 2, the little poodle is not considered a fighting force, and the lynx family seems to have a solid chance of winning. The strange thing is that the other party doesn't seem to be planning to escape. A bunch of outsiders, two monsters who have never seen the world, let you see the fighting power of the lynx son family, and teach you a lesson. Speaking of helpers, the big red-haired baboon grinned with big yellow teeth protruding from its mouth and whined at the lynx family. There was a lot of noise and a rumble. There were all kinds of noises coming from all directions in the woods, and animals, both seen and unseen, emerged from the woods. A jaguar with no inferior fighting power jumped onto the treetop, arched its back according to the hunting movements in its genetic memory, and was ready to attack at any time. The silly big deer was a little scared, but he still mustered up the courage, lowered his head, and pointed the fork-like antlers in the direction of the lynx grandson. Two armadillos covered in armor, like iron balls, rolled out. When the grizzly bear boss appeared, the lynx family was completely dumbfounded. What's happening here? Is there an army coming? Woof 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 woof, amidst the barking of a group of pet dogs, two cute short horses walked out slowly. On the horseback, riding two little bears in black and white. Panda. The lynx son family once saw a group of these people deep in the Kinling Mountains, and they were severely punished. The memory is very deep. Ying spit out a long piece of straw in her mouth fiercely, and waved her little paws proudly at the lynx son family. Brothers and sisters, join me in killing these thugs. Super Zoo. Author, Yin Seg by. Chapter 640. A fierce battle soon came to an end. A fierce battle is for the lynx son family. On the side of the fleeing animals, including the sea, land, air, and even the underground, there are all types of troops with obvious numerical advantages. There are also several fierce generals stationed in charge. The lynx son family, which once dominated for a while, has almost no power to fight back. Can't even run away. The battle turned into a siege, and the siege quickly turned into a beating. After being slapped by the grizzly bear and stuck on a big tree, the lynx family completely gave up their resistance. Many of the animals present were carnivorous, including the pet dogs. Strictly speaking, their ancestors did not grow up eating dog food, and carnivorous blood still flowed in their bones. Fighting consumes a lot of energy. A group of escaped animals were already hungry all the way, but now their eyes are green, and they are staring at the four lynx grandsons who are covered in tendons with good intentions. The whole family of lynx and son are going to cry. They beat me up, but they still want to eat me. What kind of world is this? To endure the humiliation and save his life, the lynx grandson could only contribute the food hidden in his lair. A big meal, seeing the food accumulated for several days being eaten up by this group of barbaric uninvited guests, the lynx grandson's heart was bleeding. The problem of herbivores is relatively easy to solve. There are wild fruits, wild grasses, and flowers everywhere in the mountains. Although they may not be good for your appetite, you will not go hungry. Uncle Vulture is a little unhappy, he likes to eat scavengers. Although the private collection contributed by the lynx grandson is all dead animals, there is still a big gap between them and scavengers. While eating, I stared at the lynx grandchildren with noses that were not noses and eyes that were not eyes. The grizzly bear boss was equally unhappy. It likes to eat fish, and salmon from the Atlantic Ocean are its favorites. The thigh of an unknown animal in its mouth tastes weird and not delicious. It was not happy, and the lynx grandson who was very close at hand was unlucky. If it moved even a little, it would be slapped on the head and face, and the hair on its head would fly around. It looked like it was developing into an Uncle Vulture. Can you blame me for this? The lynx son family felt that these guys were too unreasonable. Soon, all the food stored by the lynx son family had been eaten. At this moment, at most 2 kilometers away from here, the police hounds had smelled the scent of the animals, and following the scent, they led the capture team towards this direction. The lynx grandson prays to God and worships Buddha. He is just sitting at home behind closed doors. Misfortune comes from the sky. I am unlucky. I hit an evil star when I go out. These uncles are full and they should leave as soon as possible. Get away as far away as possible. After eating, animals want to sleep. The same goes for animals. After eating, many animals become a little lazy and lie down to rest. The two pandas were leaning against the tree, holding pieces of thatch in their mouths, their eyes rolling around as if they were thinking about something. After hanging out with Su Ming in Yangchuan City Zoo for a long time, they are not stupid. Not only are they not stupid, they can be said to be as smart as ghosts. Instinctively, I feel that this place is not that safe. Even though there are mountains nearby, it is only a few kilometers away from the mountains. It is not difficult for humans to catch up. When Lele was pregnant, Ying often wandered around with Su Ming, and had many interactions with Huiya's large group of dogs in the back of the zoo. She knew that these guys had very good noses, and every time she entered the mountain, she would, dogs can find themselves even though they are far away. Leaning against the tree, Ying actually missed that time and glanced at Lele secretly. If only she could be pregnant every day, she could go out and fool around every day. But when she looked down at the little penis under her belly, Ying sighed a little depressed. Let's get back to the point, it's not safe here yet, no. We have to continue marching deeper into the mountains. Yingying and Lele made a decision immediately and continued walking into the mountains. A loud roar summoned their men. Lele and Yingying used their hands and feet to climb on the back of the pony from England and directed the animals to move forward. This kind of pony that children ride will never grow big in its lifetime. It has a head height of 70 to 80 centimeters and is chubby. In winter, it will grow thick long hair to keep out the cold. At first glance, it looks like two big meatballs on two mutated piglets. Watching the animal army slowly leaving their territory, the lynx family took a long breath. Thank God, these bastards finally got out. However, the four big cats soon stopped laughing. Not long after, the sound of dogs barking was heard in the distance, and a human scent floated in the air. Hearing this sound and smelling these smells, the hairs of the lynx family stood on end. Danger, mortal danger. Humans with hunting dogs are definitely 100,000 times more dangerous than all animals. Animals, after all, are still conflicts within the class. For example, the gang of bastards before, as long as the other party is full, the other party will not make it difficult for them. The lynx son family subconsciously ignored the fact of being beaten. But humans are different, they want everything, and everything they see will be plundered. Their own flesh will be eaten, their fur will be stripped off to make coats, their claws will be cut off and made into various small objects to show off their martial prowess, and the two little lynx grandsons will be imprisoned in the zoo, losing their freedom and becoming human plaything. What to do? The lynx son couple immediately made a decision that they had never thought of before. They went after those bastards and followed them. The strong are respected among animals. There are many of those bastards, and there are two powerful-looking pandas as their bosses. If you follow them in the mountains, you will never suffer any loss. What are you thinking about? Run. The barking of dogs is getting closer and closer. Lynx son turned and chased in the direction where the fleeing animals left. Report, a large number of animal footprints and feces were found nearby. It must be right, it's here. Where are the animals? Based on the freshness of the feces, it can be judged that the animals left not long ago. In other words, humans were a step late. They arrived just after the animals. Although they didn't catch the animals, the people in the team were relieved. They didn't find the animals, but they didn't find the bodies either. There were some bloody fur and bones. The veterinarian checked and found that they should be local small animals in the mountains, not those escaped animals. There was also feces all over the ground. All this shows that the escaped animals are in good health and have gradually adapted to the wildlife in the mountains and forests. There are no injuries or deaths. Although it is difficult to say it clearly, everyone knows it in their hearts. Now the facts of the case have basically been revealed, and the only thing left is to bring the escaped animals to justice. But these animals are not real criminals. Even if they cannot be caught, it will not cause social unrest and affect the dignity of the law. Therefore, whether it is the leader of the special task force or the specific case handlers, they all have the idea that if they catch them, they should do their best to catch them. It is best to catch them. But if they really cannot be caught, it is not a big deal. To put it another way, it is better not to catch them than to hope that these animals will be killed or injured. If there are casualties, the nature of this matter will change a bit. It was originally a comedy, at most a farce, and if there are animal casualties, it will become a tragedy. No one knows what the Hong Kong Ocean Park thinks. If we speculate, they definitely hope to recover their losses and reputation, but they should not want animal casualties to occur. Leader, what should we do? The veterinarian looked at the surrounding environment. For humans, this location can be considered a deep mountain. If we chase further into it, it will be dangerous. The police station leader who led the team frowned and quickly calculated the current situation. A small team of 22 people, with sufficient tranquilizer guns, and a lot of food and clean water left, should be able to go deeper if they persist. They have already come here, and seeing the escaped animals in front of them, it is really unwilling for him to give up at this time. Comrades, it's time to fight a hard battle. All parties are watching us and waiting for our good news. Whether it is for the protection of animals, or for everyone's personal future, and for the honor of Yangchuan City, we can't fail at this time. Everyone rest in place for half an hour and continue to head into the mountains. One chase, one escape. A few kilometers away, the 4 lynx grandsons have joined the main force. The escaped animals led by the panda accepted these 4 new accomplices without hesitation. However, since they are joining the gang, they must have a pledge of allegiance. Kinling Mountains is very large, with abundant food, and is a natural treasure house. However, for these foreign animals who have lived in the zoo for many years, this place is also full of dangers. The biggest problem is food. There are too many escaped animals, which is an advantage in fighting, and they also need a large amount of food supply. Where is there food in Kinling Mountains? Where are the powerful wild beasts that cannot be offended for the time being? Where can they hide? Only the local natives know this information. The strongest castle is often breached from the inside. With 4 local guides, the situation within a radius of dozens of miles was quickly understood. A large group of animals, before dark, marched towards a small lake. This natural lake has existed for many years, and together with the upstream and downstream streams, it is rich in fish resources, and all kinds of big fish are big and fat, and especially stupid. The only trouble is that there is a group of about a dozen Yangtze alligators in this lake, and the nearby 1 kilometer of territory is their hunting area. This lake is even more regarded as a forbidden delicacy by the Yangtze alligators. Yangtze alligators are gentle and don't attack people easily, but they are carnivores after all. If other animals go to the river to drink water or even steal their fish, they will never treat them politely. In fact, when the lynx son family moved from afar and entered this lake, they were thirsty and almost dragged into the water and eaten by a somewhat exaggerated Yangtze alligator. Choosing this group of Yangtze alligators to attack, the lynx son family had a bit of a personal vendetta.